these days do start talking about AI, but they usually end up talking about data. But of course, there isn't AI without data.
It's all about what we feed into our friendly neighborhood large language models. And those models are doing more than most to shape the future of state and local government. And we have data and one of its chiefs to back us up. Hey, it's Ashley Silver. Zina and Zoe will be here in a moment on this, our second episode of Government Technology A to Z, the new occasional series of the future in context. It is our generational take on the intersection of society, technology, and government. In today's world, data is shaping our daily interactions through common technologies. And amidst the AI evolution over the past few years, discussions inevitably circle back to data. Why? Because data is the lifeblood of artificial intelligence systems, driving innovation and powering those systems. To dive deeper, we sat down with Neil Cooke, Chief Data Officer at the Texas Department of Information Resources. During our conversation, Neil sheds light on the immense power of data, demystifying its complexities and exploring why it's more empowering than intimidating.
It's a great time to be in the data world, especially with AI and generative AI in particular these days making all the headlines. So happy to be here, and I'm just excited to be in a role where I can actually help influence and make a difference in how well programs are run, how well service is delivered.
We know that data does play a large role in state government decision-making processes, but can you explain the significant role it plays in shaping policies that directly impact citizens' lives and give some examples of how that's taken shape in Texas during your tenure?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, effective data management really is great at turning raw information into actionable insights, and governments are increasingly acknowledging the role that data is shaping, in their policies, their decision makings, and it really highlights the necessity for data professionals to play a more central role. And those insights gleaned can really directly affect and influence people's lives. In Texas, this has been quite evident in various areas, and a couple of good examples. One is around the modernization of the Texas electrical grid. So following the 2021 winter storm that led to widespread power outages across the whole state, the state legislature used data from the outage itself, data on performance, forecasted capacity, demand, to inform new policies. And those policies were aimed at modernizing the grid, which included mandates for the weatherization of power generation facilities, as well as the transmission lines themselves to withstand some of the extreme weather conditions that are pretty rare in Texas, but they do still happen. And these policies included actions, too, for improving the coordination between the electrical and the natural gas actual providers. Another good example, I think, is around broadband services and expanding those services. The pandemic really highlighted the reliance on remote work in education, but it also highlighted the digital divide across the state. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 2.8 million Texas households and 7 million Texans lack access to broadband, and a quarter of Texans can't access online classes. They can't see a healthcare provider from the comfort of their living room. They can't fill out job applications online. And even if they wanted to, they couldn't start a business or access online marketplaces from their kitchen table. And these barriers all negatively affect Texans' quality of life and really limit the economic opportunities for people and the state overall. And this led to the formation of the Broadband Development Office within the Texas Comptroller's Office. And that was tasked with expanding access to broadband services across the state. So they looked at data from local governments, internet service providers. They looked at data transmission speeds, infrastructure capacity, affordability data to really understand the disparity that exists in this access to broadband. And they're using this information to prioritize their investments and infrastructure development in those underserved areas. And these are just two, I think, really good examples that speak to the power of leveraging good quality, complete data.
I've heard that, data silos can sometimes cause challenges to implementing certain programs cohesively and kind of impede the decision making process that we spoke about. I even read about shadow systems, quote unquote, which are essentially those spreadsheets that might be created for good reason, but can limit data accessibility to one or two individuals rather than a team that also needs that information as well. Is that something that you faced when you stepped into this role? And what's your advice to prevent data silos in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, data silos and shadow systems can be real issues. It's most definitely inefficient to not know whether customers in one database also exist elsewhere in your organization, especially when you consider that state agency programs can tend to expand and contract through each legislative session. So, for example, an agency might be asked to take on new responsibilities in a certain program area, or another agency might find that one of its programs is completely transferred to another agency. But whatever the cause, business requirements can change, and new or modified systems are then needed to support the program. And without a proper assessment, and if there's a lack of time or money or both, it might be tempting to create a new, quick, easy standalone database under your desk rather than modifying an existing system or buy something new. And these data silos lead to inaccurate analysis, wasted time. There's a lack of holistic view of the customers, and it can really impair the insights into their world. The lack of visibility or awareness that these silos even exist really exacerbates the challenge of applying effective data management to the relevant source systems. Is it good quality? Is it accurate? Is it complete? Maybe. I've not faced this issue at DIR, but I've certainly seen it elsewhere to varying degrees. But there are positive steps being taken. So with each passing legislative session, Texas lawmakers are adding a bit more data management rigor to our government code. So, for example, in 2021, during the 87th legislative session, Senate Bill 475 was passed, which was a really big bill, and it included 3 data-specific components. First of all, it said agencies and institutions of higher education with 150 or more employees need to designate a full-time data management officer. That is a focal point to lead their organization's data management activities. The bill also established the Data Management Advisory Committee, the DMAC, and that's a committee comprised of those same data officers, and they're asked to collaborate with the statewide chief data officer to share best practices, help develop and mature the state's overall data management program. And I hold quarterly meetings with the 100 plus data officers now, as well as monthly meetings with smaller subgroups of maybe 10 to 15 data officers. And third of all, the bill directed all new IT projects to include a section in the plan on how the data used or produced by the project will be classified, how to build the appropriate security and record retention requirements into those plans. The advice I give whenever I meet with the Data Management Advisory Committee, and really at any given opportunity, is have a flexible, scalable data strategy that aligns with your long-term organizational goals, but can also adapt to changing program needs, because they will change, and prioritize data discovery, data classification, data governance, so you can discover your assets, address the data quality at the source. Is it trustworthy? Is it free of biases? And work with your data stewards around your organization. They're the ones who are responsible for the management and the oversight of the organization's data in their particular domain. They can help do away with existing silos. They can prevent future ones from happening. They really provide business users with this high quality data. And these are data stewards that exist today in probably every organization. They may not go by that name. They may be a program specialist, but they probably know how the data moves in and out of their org. And they really can be great champions to help you, with your data management assets. So work with them, add a little bit of data management structure to their lives, to their processes. And that's really going to help promote a culture where data is valued and it's managed as the key asset, as it should be.
So I know that AI is using data to analyze production cost and help identify bottlenecks to optimize resource utilization in government services. We have Zina here for coverage on that. I know you did have some questions for Neil pertaining to AI and data governance.
Thanks for that, Ashley. So, there's a really great GovTech article by our own Nikki Davidson on how good AI programs must begin with good data, Which raises the question, what do you consider good data or bad data? And how can states either solely get that good data or separate it from the bad?
Yeah. A lot of conversations these days do start talking about AI, but they usually end up talking about data. But of course, there isn't AI without data, and that's where data management really comes in. It's just fundamentally necessary to have good quality, well-managed data to help you tease out what you need, what you don't need. I can see where artificial intelligence is steadily beginning to impact data governance strategies as well, and it will continue to do so in new and different ways, enhancing our basic data management capabilities, helping us improve data quality, and enabling more effective use of the data. And they can automate complex tasks too, and processes, of course, providing predictive analytics, helping support data privacy, data security through their rather advanced algorithms. Generative AI is kind of a hot topic, right? The subset of AI is generative AI, and it's really transforming our approach to data analysis in a couple of decent respects. Predominantly, data falls into two categories, so structured and unstructured. Of course, structured is organized into the clear rows and columns like in a database, making it fairly straightforward to handle. But in contrast, unstructured data, which includes images, videos, Word, and other text documents, have traditionally been a lot more challenging to analyze. But AI models are really excelling at analyzing unstructured data, and they're able to extract insights from these vast data sets much more efficiently than we've seen. Of course, artificial intelligence has been around in one form or another since, I think, the middle of the last century. And a lot of tools we have today have AI built in. Tools such as IBM Watson, Informatica's Claire, Calibra, Alation. And these tools do a great job of supporting data discovery, classification, and deduplication of records, again, to help tease out what's good and what's relevant. And these large language models, too, can be trained on government code, for example, come up with new modified policies and rules. And as these newer AI models are coming online, it's just, I think, just going to keep increasing in its capabilities and its use cases.
Excellent. I have a little follow-up question. I just wanted to know, have you seen any experiments in using these like large language models to kind of separate the necessary relevant data? Like, have you seen them in action yet?
Not in action at the state. I've seen it, on various videos nationally and in other parts of the world, but no, not yet. But it's coming pretty soon, I think.
Now that, we've talked about data quality, I kind of want to talk about some of the other pillars of data governance. Namely, what else goes into it? And where do states stand? Like, are there any states that are particularly standing out to you as models for best practices? And what are they doing well?
In Texas, we follow the Data Management Body of Knowledge, which is the DAMA Data Management Framework. And I don't know if you've seen the Data Management Body of Knowledge, but it's a great 600-page reference framework to help. What we did in Texas is we came up with the Fast Start Learning Guide, much more condensed version of that. We worked with DAMA to come up with an abridged version of that. And that's something that we share with agencies. One of the things that DIR does is send out a biennial questionnaire on how agencies and institutions of higher ed are doing in various aspects of technology, including data management. And I can tell you that self-reported data management maturity is on the rise and has been in Texas over the past several years, which is really, really great to see. So make sure you've got your data governance in place, which helps set the direction and the vision. That's one of the core components, and the data management is like the car following those GPS directions and avoiding potholes and whatnot. So agencies in Texas are doing very well. I do speak with chief data officers from around the country monthly, and sometimes they'll share challenges. A lot of the challenges are very similar. It's not always technology. People, process, and technology is something that we say. Change management is a big piece of that. That's not explicitly called out in a lot of the data management frameworks, but people resist change naturally, and getting that component in is a large piece of the challenge as well. It's hard to gauge the maturity across all the different aspects of data governance components, but there are agencies and states doing really well in one aspect and less so in another. Texas is leading, one of the leading states in data literacy programs, for example. It's only one of a couple of states that has a program, and that's something that's fairly new for us, but is already becoming quite wildly popular. And it's a series of videos that we've produced, e-learning courses, and we make those available for agencies and institutions of higher education to access for free and earn badges and things. We also have non-quiz versions uploaded to YouTube, and we also make the DIR content available to other agencies if they want to host it on their own learning management system, because data literacy is really up there with data governance and understanding, priorities. NASCIO's top 10 priorities, for example, that CIOs refer to data governance is routinely in the top handful, and with that is the literacy to understand really what people are talking about in this world.
One of the things that comes up when we see discussions about AI and data are what all can go wrong or what users need to be careful of. So, Zoe, can we dive into your questions for Neil about some of the challenges or risks that state government should prep for when it comes to managing data?
So what immediately comes to mind when I think of data, as unfortunate as it is the Cambridge Analytica breach in 2016. And to me, I think that was a major instance in which the first major instance in which we heard about millions of people having their data privacy breached. And to me, it really changed how people reacted to having their data online, harvested, managed. And so now 8 years later, there have been countless other data breaches, many of which have involved governments. So my first question is, what should governments be doing or be wary of when they branch into this realm of data governance? And how much of a concern is it that a third-party management of data could be compromised?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely some challenges and opportunities around this space, continuing to ensure data privacy, like you said, and data security. But the task of maintaining the confidentiality, the integrity, the availability of the data really does become a lot more complex when we start giving AI algorithms access to these extensive data sets. And there's a risk that AI systems might, perpetuate or even exacerbate biases found in their training data. So I think another significant challenge lies in adapting those legal frameworks to accommodate this rapidly evolving nature of these technologies, and so developing or requiring the necessary staff expertise as well to effectively implement and manage these systems represents a considerable challenge. But there are a lot of promising opportunities, to support these things. As I said, I think the next generation AI models are really set to revolutionize data management significantly. Natural language processing can analyze customer sentiment, automate various services through chatbots, of course, but really provide those insights. So this is the flip side of the risk coin. All these opportunities are abundant. The automation of not only routine but more complex tasks are going to be leading to significant cost reductions, efficiencies, and the automation coupled with AI's capability for enhanced decision-making really emphasizes this real transformative impact that these models are going to be having on our data management practices. So it is important to acknowledge that the effectiveness of these models is heavily dependent on the quality of the data and the security and the privacy of the data that they're trained on. And if this is inaccurate or incomplete in any way, the results are going to be unreliable or biased. In June last year, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed House Bill 2060, which established Texas's Artificial Intelligence Advisory Council. Now, this council is tasked with studying and monitoring AI technology that's being developed or used or procured by state agencies to ensure that the development, whether it's in-house or through a third party, is responsible, it's ethical, prioritizing privacy, prioritizing civil liberties. The council is going to assess the need for an AI code of ethics, review automated decision systems, evaluate benefits, the risks, and recommend actions to help ensure that ethical AI development in Texas. At the same time, our Chief Technology Officer at DIR established an AI user group across agencies, which is now comprised of about 350 active members across Texas government. And this user group was formed to provide best practices, education, awareness to public sector employees, assist agencies with brainstorming and vetting of use cases. And the work group really also facilitated workshops in coordination with private sector, the community. So it's about promoting the sharing of information really between these sectors. And the group's met 3 times so far, discussed lots of topics, best practices, privacy, security, all of these things that I think support the concerns that you raised here.
I think that's really interesting because there is a lot of regulating and kind of reacting to all this data management. And so it kind of leads me to my next question, which is there really a risk to the general population's privacy as data continues to collect and kind of obviously try to protect, but our government's becoming Big Brother?
Yeah, well, every time you have more of something, the risk, however small, is likely to increase as well. But agencies are working hard with their security, their privacy departments, their technology departments to help ensure that things are safe and that there are checks and balances put in place. There are human elements, of course, involved in this, and humans can be, fallible.
Well, and so after all this discussion about governments and managing data and protection of that information, I want to ask if we can analyze the trend of cities increasingly hiring chief data officers, or as you mentioned, the data management officers. What do you think that says overall about the current intersectionality of government and data or data management, and where do you think this future is headed?
Yeah, there are now a great number of state chief data officers. I think there's in a region of 30 at the moment. And through the bill that was passed a couple of years ago in Texas, within Texas, there are over 100 data officers as well identified.
So what would you want the takeaway of this conversation to be for our listeners? Ultimately, is data governance really that scary of a thing?
Data governance is not scary at all, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but there have been data management, data governance practices in place for a while. It's only over the past handful of years that I think the rigor, the formality has started to increase. So it's not big and scary. One simple step can just be, have either a data governance advisory council to talk about upcoming projects, priorities, and how they work together and how we're going to make sure there's security, privacy, etc. Or add it as a line item to an existing council meeting, to talk about that from that angle. Privacy, security, data management. It's like a Venn diagram. It really is. And you really struggle to have a conversation about one without the other. So continue to do that. Find your peers across your agency, your state, your records management officers, security, privacy officers, and meet with them regularly, because if you look at the base job descriptions for these roles and look at the overlaps, there is just a ton of shared responsibility on a lot of these assets. So meet regularly with your peers, and that'll go a long way. It's not scary at all. You're very welcome.
This is fun and absolutely spectacular information for our audience, Neil. Thanks so much for joining us. And that is a wrap for our second episode of A to Z on the future in context. Next time, Zina takes a deep dive on the state of media and what that means for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Our editorial and production team includes Theo Douglas and Kaylee Tedrow. Our producer is Paul Taylor. Our executive editor is Noelle Nell. And our editors-in-chief are Dustin Heisler and Kathalia Robinette. I'm Ashley Silver from Government Technology, the A in A to Z, and I brought friends.
I'm Zina Hutton from Governing, the Z in A to Z, but not the only one.
And I'm Zoe Manzanetti from Governing, another Z to anchor the alphabet. Government A to Z is a monthly feature on the future in context.
You can subscribe to our podcast for free on the app of your choice: Spotify, Apple, Odyssey, and Audible. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend, or two, or all of them. We'd appreciate it.
For Ashley Silver and Zina Hutton, I'm Zoe Manzanetti. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.